So today I want to talk about airships, deceased people. Anytime someone is no longer around, sometimes when you are looking at overages, and a lot of people have been asking me this lately, and there are some pros and cons to if you are looking at an overage list and you see like estate or you see like trustee, or you'll look up the person and you'll notice that it says the person's deceased. And I do have mixed feelings about this, but I was like, I'm going to shoot a video because I had one student that was like, I'm just going to target all corporations and people that are like in trust in a state. And I was like, that's good because a lot of people try to steer away from that. And I'm here to tell you, uh, I personally have said in several different videos that I don't like doing like trust or estates, but it just all depends. I have done them for some of my students, some of my masterminds where, we do as group settings. I attempt to go after them, but there are some stipulations. And this is why I brought up this table of airship because it'll give you guys like a visual insight of all the things that you have to procure in certain counties. If you, excuse me, if you are going to do like if someone's deceased and or if it says like trustee or an estate. So this is a table of airship, and basically at the very top here, I'm going to highlight it, it says deceased owner name. So how this normally works is if the person's deceased, it's going to go to the deceased owner's spouse. Now I'm going to tell you guys right now, if there is a husband and wife, and like let's just say the husband dies and the wife is still alive, I personally will pursue a overage like that because 9 times out of 10 she knows his information, and if it's the wife that's dead and the husband's still alive, 9 times out of 10 most of the time people know their spouse's information, and therefore you don't have to go down this lineage, right? So for me, in my opinion, I will do if it's like a spouse, or like sometimes some counties will have like a deceased owner, and you're able to find out like through an obituary if they had any like siblings or like next of kin. However, I'll tell you like the pros and the cons. I would say the pros is if it's just one person, or like let's just say it's a deceased owner and they never got married, they had a kid and that kid's alive, that may be simple because you kind of could do like a paper trail. But needless to say, this is a form from California, and I thought it was really relevant to explain to people, the pros and the cons, or like why I would do one and why I wouldn't do one if the person is deceased. Like I said, if this is the deceased owner at the top and they have a spouse, I definitely would move forward, especially if they had a marriage and like the husband or the wife, either or, if one of them are still living, I personally will collect the overage. It just takes a while depending upon what state you're in. For example, in California, you have to go through you have to do administrator of probate, especially if both of the people were not on title, which can take a little bit more time. In Florida, I don't want to say it's a lot simpler, but the process does take time, but doesn't take as much time as in California. But it also depends on what county, because the county workers, and depending on how busy the county is, it's going to determine how long the probate process will be. But let's say the husband and the wife is dead, or let's just say the owner never got married, then it will go to the deceased owner's children. And then let's just say the children have children. So as you guys can see, this is where for me it gets a little bit hairy and gets in the gray area of, do you want to proceed with this? Because in my opinion, like let's just say a person have 4 kids, you got to get all 4 kids to sign off on this affidavit. And basically sometimes what ends up happening is, one person would be like, well, I'll do it myself, or I'll figure it out myself. The other person's like, let this person do it. So in my opinion, I don't like to deal with if it's more than like one kid, or like if there is no trust or if there's no will. You do have to go down, what they call, this is like an heirship claim form. And this is particularly in the state of California. Like if you they didn't have a will or whatever, you'd have to fill this out and still go through the probate process. So I just wanted to kind of read through this and tell you, like, section 1 is where Mika, in my opinion, she stops. Like, so if the spouses are dead, I don't like to deal with it. Or if the owner never got married but has one child, I will deal with it. So it just really depends on the situation and what your tenacity to continue to deal with, how many ever people you want to deal with. I always tell people, to each its own. In this business, it's your business. You could go about it however you like. That's pretty much where I stop. But you can also go, like, let's just say the husband and the wife are both dead. Then you could go after their children. Like, for example, there's one claim, it's a really large one. I know that the husband and the wife are both deceased. It was in the wife's name, so then it would have went to the husband. So then I tried to look for the children, and I saw the obituary, and the obituary like had 5 kids. I haven't been able to find not one of them. So I say this all to say it could be a long, tedious process. And then another thing you can always do is, depending on how much work you want to do, in some counties, you can go to the probate and they have it online. So, like, say, for example, like this one I'm talking about, which I know they haven't filed a claim because obviously nobody in the family knows. Otherwise, I'm sure there would have been a process. But, like, let's just say you want to go after someone that is deceased. The first thing I would do is I would look up that county's probate. And I probably should do a video on that too. But I want to say that all counties don't have their probate files online. But if I were you and you wanted to target people that were deceased and both parties, husband and wife, are deceased, I would look at the probate court and see if there was a probate filed, depending upon the state. So I'm going to say that again. Depending upon the state, you do want to look in the probate file to see if a probate has been filed, especially California, because you can't do anything unless, there's an administrator of state or if there's a probate in process. Florida is a little bit different. Texas is a little bit different. So it's just one of those things where you have to understand what's the process and procedures for a deceased person, which is, once again, why I really don't like to do deceased. But I will say that Florida have some more leniency and they do have a little bit more workarounds. You still have to file paperwork. There still is a cost. That, which is what I wanted to also talk about, is when you find a deceased person, just remember when you're negotiating terms that there are additional costs if you go after deceased people, more than if you were just going after a person that is alive. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys this heads up and kind of like reiterate, my thought process about deceased people, or like if there's a trustee. Most of the time, if there's a trust, it's a little bit more simpler because it's all laid out and it would tell you who the beneficiaries of that trust. But anyway, I wanted to kind of just go through this and show you that it starts off with the owner, then the owner's spouse, then their children. Then if those children were dead, then it would go to the deceased owner's grandchildren. And then it also has the deceased owner's parents if they're alive, which is not more than likely not. And then it has deceased owners, brothers and sisters. And then it has the children of deceased owners and brothers and sisters. So this is how like the heirship goes. And then you could sign this, and then this would give a clear chain of title of like who would be entitled. Now, been dealing with this another property, and it's like it's so complicated. Like literally everybody gets like 20%, and it's just so convoluted at the end of the day. It's like, is it really worth going after all of that? So like I said, the buck stops here with me. With one of the spouses must be alive, or if the owner has one children, which is often rare, right? So just really depends. I literally take deceased people situation by situation, only because it just really depends on how much work is entailed. And I also want to conclude this video by letting you guys know that if you do decide to go after deceased or estates or trustee, just know, depending on the state that you're in or the county, because I think some of the counties may be lenient within the state, but you have to know that there will be additional upfront costs, more than the normal. Like literally, most claims cost me less than $100 to file and process. But some counties, especially when you're dealing with probates and deceased, it does require a little bit more funding as far as like getting the death certificate, getting a copy of the deed, and getting signatures from everybody. So there is a little bit more cost that's involved in dealing with deceased or trustees or trust or probate. So just wanted to give you my little 2 cents and show you kind of like the table of heirship of this is the process if you decide to go after deceased claimants. This video helps.